Well, Deborah, we're back for another week. Want to welcome you all back. I'm Jerry Cooey.
I'm Deborah Nelson.
And we're here with Santa Rosa Week. You know, we've had a real, we had a little difficulty last week. Wasn't our fault. If you missed part of the show, there was some technical difficulties.
The show cut off.
Yeah, the show cut off. The Mediacom assures us that everything is settled out. We will be on, they did air the show about 3 or 4 times on Monday to make up for that.
Correct.
So, you know, hopefully some new people caught it. But our normal time slot will be Saturday from 4:30 to 5, Mediacom Channel 27. And we certainly apologize for that. Well, Deborah...
Do we have any news to talk about?
Well, we do have a little news. We just completed the election and
the primary election.
The primary election, ladies and gentlemen. We're not going to bore you with a bunch of numbers, but we are going to go over the different groups here, and there's a couple things that you need to know. So we'll start out with the public defender.
Well, I'd like to point out, I think this is the story here, is that only 23% of the electorate turned out for this.
Right. Well, you know, and
I think that's relevant because we ended up ousting 2 county commissioners, 2 incumbents who were running for re-election were ousted by a minority of the voters.
Well, you know, it's just like I've said all along, is angry people have a tendency to vote, and those that aren't angry have a tendency to sit at home. Now, if I had my wishes about it, if they're informed voters, I would like everybody to come to the polls. I am certainly not an advocate of 100% voting if people haven't paid attention and really know what they're doing.
I think that a lot of people still don't realize that many of these races are decided at the primary.
Right.
They're not decided at the general election.
Yeah, well, you know, we're constantly changing the law, and certainly against my will, the state of Florida has taken away any runoffs. I just think it's an absolute injustice, and I hope the chairman of the Republican Party of the state of Florida is hearing me, and our legislative members are hearing me. We need to have a runoff. It gives the incumbent a huge advantage. Whether this person's been a good incumbent or a bad incumbent, it gives them an advantage, and I just don't think it's fair. And there's some races that we're going to talk about that obviously a runoff would have been much better for the citizens. So.
Sure. Well, especially since I noticed this time as being registered to the party that's not normally the party that has anybody running, is it was really pretty slim pickings on my ballot this year. The way it works is if only one party fields candidates, everybody can vote. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, doesn't matter.
Right.
But this year, a number of these races had write-in candidates.
And they were closed out, and you didn't get to vote in them.
And I didn't get to vote in them. I got to vote in 4 races this year.
And the decision was made in the primary, and you didn't get to
That's
vote.
what happened. And I think that happened to a lot of people who were registered Republicans.
Absolutely. So let's get into the list. Public defender, we had James Owens and Kelly Merritt Richards. James Owens, pretty much across, I think he won every district that's included in this. And this was kind of a historic race because there's only been one man that's ever held this job. That was at the creation of the job. So this is the first time the voters had an opportunity to vote for this race, and James Owens pulled it out in the Republican primary. He will have a Democratic challenger.
Correct, Tony Henderson.
Tony Henderson. They will go head to head in November the 4th. State Representative District 1. That was Greg Evers versus Ryan Gilbert. In this race, Representative Evers walked away with it.
Yeah, I don't think that was a surprise.
Yeah, it's not hard to figure out, ladies and gentlemen. If you look at any race, I don't care, even if an incumbent is doing a great job, anybody can get 20-25% of the vote. So that was certainly not a surprise.
And there was actually a write-in candidate on that race as well.
Right, and so that one will go to November
Correct.
also. In the sheriff's race, Wendell Hall certainly got out to a big lead and held the lead. Chris Roper, second place in that. I think Chris ran a good race, but the numbers just overwhelmed him. But in this race, the sheriff will face 2 write-ins in November.
In November, that's correct.
So that could be interesting. Write-ins have won, but it does takes a lot of effort to get that. In the tax collector race, Stan Coley Nichols apparently did a very good job in the eyes of the voters.
And this was a race everybody was watching.
This is certainly a race.
This was a bit of a free-for-all.
Right. Yeah. This was probably one of the ugliest. A lot of things passed back and forth there. I really felt there was some candidates there that went over the line, but neither here nor there. Now, Stan will also face opposition in November.
Democratic challenger Danny Holt.
Danny Holt,
Yes.
right? And so everybody gets to vote on that one. Superintendent of schools. That was Grady Herb Cannon versus Tim Rosdick, and fairly close, but Tim Rosdick did pull off the win on that one.
That brings us to the county commission.
That brings us to the county commissioner race, and county commission District 1. Mr. Jim Williamson has completed that.
Yes.
He's won the Republican primary. In November, there will be a no party affiliation candidate. Stacia Ledoux will be in that race, so that will be on your ballot in November. Board of County Commissioners District 3. Don Salter won re-election, but I have to say by the thinnest of margins.
It was about a 2% margin.
About a 2% margin. And I'll use Commissioner Salter's own words in the newspaper. He thanked those that helped pull him through. I think he realizes that he narrowly won re-election and came very close to not making it. So we'll see, since he is the only incumbent coming back, we'll see if he makes any adjustments in how he operates in the county. Board of County Commissioners District 5. I will tell you that I felt like that Lane Lynchard was going to pull this one off.
This one was a little bit close too.
Well, it was very close. At one time last night, Mr. Lynchard was only 100 votes ahead, and then the final margin was about 340 or 50 votes.
And he told us it was a little bit nerve-wracking sitting there.
Actually, I looked back at him one time, and I had to tell him to take a breath. And I can imagine. Lane has run a great campaign. He's hit all the marks. He's done a good job, and I think his message resonated with the voters of Santa Rosa County that it's time for a progressive change, a different view, a little out of the box thinking, and he seems very genuine that he cares about the county and he wants to do the right thing. So.
We spoke to him after
Right.
his win, and we've actually got some footage of that.
Right, so we want you to see what he had to say, and when we get back, we'll talk about the rest of the races.
This is Lane Lynchard, new commissioner for District 5 in Santa Rosa County. Roll tape.